the different councils.
North Huron,
South Huron, we have representatives
that is sitting on your fire board.
that we sell service to.
That you sell service to, correct. So is it a committee of council with external partners, or is it a committee of council with just your council members on it? That's something that you have to determine and define.
Okay.
We can clarify that.
Yeah, so further to that point, for us, it's our policies and procedures, and whether our policies and procedures support that notion, and right now, I don't see that it doesn't support the notion. It just seems like it's kind of a weird thing.
It's just,
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. But as long as our policies then were legal in a municipal act, right?
Correct, as long as your procedural bylaw is being observed,
Exactly.
that's your choice.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Day.
Yes. You mentioned that you were part of an amalgamation of several departments into one. And obviously in our situation, I mean, the work is getting done well, but I guess the bottom line to me is what would be the cost of consolidating together into one department? Do you see it as saving costs from your experience, or is it actually more costly because you have to pay for a full-time fire chief?
Well, respectfully, right off the bat, I know again from your website that when you amalgamated, you were one of the few municipalities in the province that saved money by amalgamating. That's clearly enunciated on your website and in your materials. Nobody's suggesting that you need a full-time fire chief. Okay? There are many ways of having perhaps a part-time fire chief, 24 to 30 hours a week to start. You have to start somewhere. And again, there's more efficiencies in risk management that's been looked after by becoming one fire department. I can tell you, very, very clearly that in the province of Ontario, if we go to different counties and areas, you might hear fire chiefs say, you know what, I wish we had county-wide fire department. I'm not going to suggest that would happen here in Lambton County because you have some very strong and very good fire departments. But in a lot of areas of the province, you might hear fire chiefs saying that. They would sooner be part of a county-wide because there's efficiencies in it. We all have the same bunker gear. We all have the same breathing apparatus. We all have the same type of hose. Purchasing changes when you standardize something. So perhaps the first step that you might want to look at is standardizing what all the fire departments are doing. Put somebody, you have a contract for fire prevention services or for fire inspection services. Well, let's go back to the other part of the legislation. Who's checking what those people are doing? The fire chief is the one who's responsible for doing that. And if they lack the background or don't have that knowledge or information, that's a municipal risk that you're looking at. So we try not to look at it as efficiency or cost saving, but as efficiencies. It's a municipal risk. We are dealing with some people in Elgin County who are looking at different ways of doing things now. We were invited in to conduct 2 reviews in 2 municipalities in Elgin County. One of them is pursuing very clearly a joint fire prevention initiative where somebody is going to be hired by 3 or 4 municipalities to do fire prevention inspections and public education. Not unlike what's happening in Middlesex, because we know that Middlesex, they do that, and I understand that the individuals that you have contracted do some of that work in there. But they're also looking at, okay, maybe we could have some joint training. And so they've actually have a joint training association made up of different fire departments. But they're looking at, okay, maybe we can get one training person, one training officer to work through three municipalities. And we know that happens in Wellington County. Wellington Centre, I believe, in the Aurora Fergus area, hired a fire training officer who works for, he's an employee of that municipality, but the municipalities in Wellington County all pay part of his pay, annual pay, and he provides the training or develops the training for all the fire departments in Wellington County. Not only they're all on an equal basis, so when they have to go work with each other, they know exactly what each other's experience are, what their equipment is, what their operating guidelines are. You know, there's a number of benefits. So going back to your original question, was there savings in our particular case? I can't respectfully suggest that in the first amalgamation that there was. because we were 1994, that was the first part of the province's amalgamation. Everybody was promised the world, and things didn't quite happen that way, but in the department that I went to in 2002, yes, there were savings. They had one fire chief, we had one full-time fire prevention officer, eventually. You know, when they amalgamated, they started with a fire chief, then they went to a fire prevention officer, and then to an administrative assistant. They've now blossomed into, they have no suppression firefighters full-time, they're still all volunteers. They're still station chiefs, but everything is combined. The whole process is combined, so when you work with one another, when they're looking for a new fire truck, it's the same specifications everybody gets. When they're looking at hose, it's the same specification that everybody gets. Bunker gear, it's the same specification. It stops the piecemealing, it reduces the risk for the municipality.
Just a quick one.
Okay.
If I could just ask, is there ever a time when this fire chief actually takes on the inspection roles and the prevention education type roles as well?
That's, you're asking somebody, if the person became full-time, that would probably be part of the duties that you might want to consider. Like if you're going straight off the bat and looking at it, that would be a coordinating role, I would suggest. To have somebody do fire inspections is a skill set. You have to be able to understand the legislation, not only the fire code, but the building code, the municipal act, the other acts that work with it. So to hire somebody with those skill sets to become the fire chief, et cetera, in one shot, may be a little bit more difficult, but it isn't impossible. Again, respectfully, when the first amalgamated department that I was with, I was hired as a deputy fire chief responsible for fire prevention and public education, as well as a couple other jobs that the municipality thought that I could do as well. Health and safety being one of them. So it is possible, but you have to take baby steps, and you need to move forward in a progressive manner.
I think there has been a progression with our 5 departments. I know they're buying equipment, similar equipment, standardizing things, and working towards that. So we have been doing that in the last number of years. They have training officers now that work in 2 or 3 departments, maybe all 5 departments, I don't know, but different guys doing different training and fit testing. Councilor Bunsen?
Yeah, I have a multi-parter, if that's okay.
Oh, I suppose so.
All right. As we're trying to get the best practices here, and I guess the question I have for you is, how do most fire chiefs communicate with council?
Through their CAO.
Through the CAO?
Through their CAO or through a director of community services, whatever the case is. I would respectfully suggest that there are very few fire chiefs that report directly to council.
Or communicate directly with council, not
Well,
necessarily
they can communicate directly with council, but the CAO is quite frequently that stepping stone, the one that vets their information before it gets to council.
Because the reason I ask that is we're kind of in I think it's kind of a curious situation here where we almost have a council within a council as a fire board. So we have a quorum of our council, we have an outside contract because they have a capital infrastructure investment in our service, so they have a vote, and then we have a couple that sit on this board that don't have a vote, but they have a contract with us, and then we have 5 fire chiefs that are not voting members, and they sit there, and I kind of think to myself, why aren't these fire chiefs meeting as an advisory group with staff and maybe the mayor and the deputy, and bringing that information to council? We're the ultimate decision makers, and I find it odd that the experts don't have a vote at the table. So I'm just wondering what usual practice is for...
Yeah, again, you're going to find that your fire chief is considered in most municipalities a senior member of your management staff. Pick a community, and I could probably suggest to you that that person is considered a senior manager of your staff.
Many council meetings have the fire chief sits at the council.
That's correct.
Just a comment, I know the CAO position did have meetings with the chiefs as chief meetings from time to time, so it wasn't that they weren't meeting on their own and discussing things. They did do that, just maybe council wasn't aware of that.